Hey guys, how are you doing?
Well,
Hey Jamie,
hey, what's
hello.
up, man? Pretty good.
Whereabouts are you in the world at the moment?
We're in Barcelona. As you
Barcelona.
might think that we are in London because it's very, very grayish, but no, we're in Barcelona.
So what is the weather like over there at the moment? Because I'm in Devon at the moment, and the weather is pretty sunny. So I can imagine that the sun is always pretty sunny in Barcelona.
Yeah. Yeah, it's mostly sunny. I would say, from time to time, yeah. I mean, it rains, but I have to say one of the best things of living here is the weather. The weather is, I mean, it's like, I'm from Galicia, which is in the north of Spain, and the weather is well, it's more like a London weather, to be honest. So it's mostly raining and cloudy. I mean, summer is great, but the thing is, once you move to a place like Barcelona, it's really, even if you think about moving to somewhere else, weather is always going to be a big issue because how can you improve, how can you just go somewhere that has better weather, maybe LA or maybe a place like that, but it's really pleasant, and I think that's the reason why we're spending here. How many years we've been here? Like
18 years.
18 years, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I don't know.
crazy. Time flies. Yeah.
It seems like that sun is really important for you. Like, you couldn't ever move to like somewhere like Iceland or whatever?
Well, I don't know. It's funny because in my case, at least, I'm used to like shitty weather. I mean, that's the kind of weather I grew up with, in Galicia. But I have to say that, it's just, if it's sunny, it's just, it sets you in a better mood, I guess. I don't know. It's not, you feel depressed and then it's a gloomy day outside. I mean, it enhances a bit your feelings, whereas if it's sunny, at least it's just like, hey, I mean, don't be so dramatic. Come on,
I
man.
know. I think any Australian that I ever met, they can't be sad because it's sunny all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it sound like a bit simplistic in a way, but I think, we take it for granted, and we shouldn't, because yeah, weather is so important for just being, I don't know, in a good mood. And
Yeah.
if it's raining, it's just annoying, right? I mean, you have to go. I mean, some people, some friends in London, they told me, listen, I couldn't, for me it would be really, really tricky to live in LA or Barcelona, places like that, because I really enjoy, wearing my nice coat, or my having like amazing,
Who
my
are who
my
are these
outfits.
people? Who are these people that are like, I want to wear?
Well, I mean, I have to say, yeah, he was a production designer. I guess that's the reason why.
But they're like rituals, no?
Yeah, it's just some
Maybe.
people, they just enjoy that kind of weather, and I totally understand that as well. It's just some people just hate the heat, and just
No.
it's not
I
for
hate
them.
the heat. For example, I mean, I'm from Mexico, and weather there from Mexico City is like a microclimate because
Yeah.
it's never too cold, it's never too hot, it's just perfect. It pours. But the good thing about the rainy season is that you have very nice mangoes. So you have something, you exchange something, no?
You have nice what? What do you have?
Mangoes,
Oh,
mangoes?
mangoes. Oh,
Yeah.
mangoes, fruit. Right. Okay.
So
Interesting.
at least, it's like a reward.
I've always wanted to go to Mexico, but I've also got a friend there at the moment. And apparently, because obviously in the UK we're very restrictive at the moment with lockdown. But apparently in Mexico there's a lot of filmmaking going on because it's quite flexible and there's not much kind of COVID over there. And also you got the sun as well.
Yes, I mean, of course, we are not doing great in COVID numbers in Mexico, but where isn't, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, shoots are still happening with tons of restrictions, and yes, but it's doable. That's a good thing. Well, like in Spain, here we're shooting as well. Yeah.
I've always said to my friends, I'm like, the hot versus the cold. I mean, like where it's like really, really, I mean, in Scotland last week, apparently it was -23, right? And I said to my friends, I was like, I'd much rather be blistering hot of 45 degrees than be -23 degrees, or like to be even like 1 degree. I mean, I'd just rather be melting off my socks and be like really, really hot than be really, really cold. But that's just me. That sort of SAD thing. I'm like, oh no, I've got to have sun in my life. So I think always going to LA, always going to Australia. But enough about the sun anyway and the weather. But I always chat about people with like where they are, because I always love it, like just thinking about the Bahamas or like Bali, like within the sun and the weather. But I want to know, so I'm a massive fan of your work outside of this podcast. Like I think you guys are really, really great. And I absolutely love your work. And one of my favorite pieces is the music video Gone. And also you just did the recent Selena Gomez music video, which is amazing. So well done, guys. But I want to know, so before we go on to kind of current piece of work, I want to know where it all started, because you have such a cinematic sort of scope about your work, and I want to know where that kind of came from and how you guys came about.
Well, we met at cinema school, so we were like two weirdos who wanted to team up and started collaborating together with short films. And then we moved to the music videos, and we said like, hey, what about if we start co-directing without any pressure, without anything, just like as a creative duo, no? Mm-hmm. And then it just happened, and then we moved into advertising because we thought it was fun. And that's also something that we like about co-directing, that we enjoy it, no? Mm-hmm. Because if you don't enjoy it, what's the point of working with another director? No, it's just like a lot of ego.
How did, out of this class that you were in when you were at film school, how did you know it, like out of everyone, why did you choose each other? Like what was the special thing that connected you?
I mean, it's funny because I think Tanya, she was going in the mornings and I was going in the afternoon, and I think one day, I don't know, I think you skipped your morning class and you came to mine, and I was late as always, and I just got in and I was listening to somebody talking about Citizen Kane in a very arrogant way, and I thought like, who's that person that dares to talk like that? And I was Tanya, and I was like, oh, okay, let's listen to this girl. And I don't know, from that moment on, I mean, we saw each other a few times. We never talked, but the funny thing is, we had that kind of final project in the school where you have to shoot your short film, and my editor told me, hey, so there's, I'm working with a female director that has a pretty cool short film too, and actually I think I like it more than yours. And I was like, no, that's not possible, man. My short film is fucking masterpiece. So you're lying. You want to get laid with her or something like that, baby, because I don't believe you, and then of course I watched her short film, and actually it was better than mine. And that was the first time I was like, wow, this director is great. And I was even more interested in knowing her. And then,
yeah, now it's my turn.
Okay, go on.
No, but I saw this guy, like I was supposed to meet my editor, our mutual editor, no?
Yeah.
And then suddenly he was showing my short film to Adrian. And then Adrian, like who was sitting in my director's chair, he turned up and then he said like, maybe you should remove that scene, cut this shot, or make it, like trying to like give me lessons of how to improve it.
Muscle in on your editing session.
I think we're doing well to create that, like a very bad picture of myself in this podcast. So I think we're doing great here. So
no, but it just, of course, it started like, and I thought he's right. He's totally right. I can improve my short film doing this and that. So suddenly we started to talk to each other, and then it's just like, what are your favorite directors? And what's your favorite music band? And it started like that, just as students. And then we started working as co-writers, co-directors, and then here we are 20 years later. So
wow. I think some people think like the law of attraction or like fate brings people together. Like it just happens that you decided to go to the evening class and he was there, and someone saw your short and give it to him and stuff. And it's so, do you ever think about what, like I always think about the multi-universes, that what would happen if you didn't go to the kind of evening class? Would you ever met? Like, would you be here? It's always that sort of like those simple choices that you make that make such a massive thing in the path that you lead in your life.
That's no, I think that's a good point, because well, the thing is, we saw each other a few more times. It's just I don't want to make this story like too cheesy, because it sounds like like I don't know, like a Jennifer Aniston kind of movie, or like a very silly romantic comedy. But the thing is, we saw each other a few times, walking in the street, and yeah, we had like contact, but we didn't say anything to each other. Like we just passed. And then also one day I was shooting a short film, like crappy one, of course, in the at the cinema school, and she was literally passing in front of the camera when I was framing. So it was just like there's something here going on, I mean, it's like the destiny somehow is forcing us to be together. And I've not really enjoyed to tell this story because it feels like a really bad script that I'm coming up with, but that was the reality, and we talked about it many times. Like, I mean, the amount of different things that made us being together, because she was also, I mean, she was a really established AD in Mexico. She was really young when she came here. You were in your early 20s.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know, 18 years old, something like that, or 19 years old. And so long time ago, as you can see. But the thing is, she decided just one day she wanted to direct, not being an AD anymore, and she flew to Spain. I don't know for what reason, because you could have probably other better options than coming here from a school kind of thing, in terms of, because there's not really a huge industry here in terms of movies. And but it's just, it was the destiny. I don't know. We had to be together. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's great, isn't it? How like sometimes I talk about, like, on the podcast we talk about 360 yourself. And it's about listening to I call it listening to the universe for opportunities. When it's about being aware when things are just like passing you by and things are being offered to you, and then you can only look back at things and go, oh, this is why someone said that, or this is why this person came in my life and this person left, and you can always look back and see it. So I always find it fascinating how like opportunities come in your life, and it's happening that she came past your frame of shot, and you're like, oh, I saw her before, and I love how that happens. But going back to like filming in Spain at the moment, though, it seems that there's a lot of people shooting over there compared to maybe 20 years ago. I mean, I know there's a lot of commercial work that always shoot in Spain, always shoot in Italy, because of the way maybe the industry kind of works. So, because obviously I assume that every country sort of has its own way, like Japan has its own way of shooting, America has its own way of shooting, UK has its own way of shooting. Right. Also, the weather's a lot better as well. Like you can have a treatment in the UK and go, I really want the sunset, a certain thing, I want the temperature and stuff, and people just go, well, we're in the UK. That does not happen over here. But obviously now, like you guys are based over there, it must be quite nice to kind of have your kind of roots, even though usually before COVID, of course, you traveling a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have to say that we were always traveling anyway, because it's like, for instance, in our direction is a big important part in our work, and as you can imagine, it's quite expensive building sets and all that. So normally we of course we need to fly to Eastern Europe or other countries where budgets are more competitive. So but yeah, I mean, no, I understand what you mean, because of course Barcelona got really into the league of one of the best places to shoot in the world. The crews are amazing here. You have like really interesting locations. Weather, again, we're going back to the weather thing, but it's normally great. And I think that that made it really, really attractive to other companies, directors, agencies,
and also in terms of actors, you can have like a really good range of actors, ethnicities, personalities. So right now, Barcelona, I think that it's quite cosmopolitan. So you can shoot and recreate any kind of city of the world, no? And that's super cool.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? Casting is so important in any sort of thing that you do. And if you can't get the talent, you might as well go, well, I can't reshoot it. And I love how I listen to a lot of film casting directors, and like sometimes I think, like for instance, Mulan, they spent about a year and a half finding that Mulan character, and I'm like, that's crazy that you spent but obviously so much is riding on that one person to be the face and to be leading sort of the story and the vision. So totally casting is really important, especially where you're based as well. So going on to like your recent piece of work, Selena Gomez, which I absolutely love. One of my favorite images is where I think she's looking into the table, and the table is a different image. So I'd love to know where was that shot and how was it shot? Because there's so many beautiful moments and it's so visual and it's so much CGI and just things flying everywhere and stuff. I mean, I'd love to know, like, just a breakdown how it happened.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, the idea came because of course we have to build like a structure, no? And it's a journey through the house, so we kind of time phrases along the rooms. So for that moment in particular, we thought that she sings and then there's like a reply, and it's like a reply of herself. So we thought that, okay, it's perfect that reply should be done by her own reflection, So that was like the concept. And then how we shot it through it was a table with an actual mirror. So it's her real reflection. So basically it was like 2 takes, one pass for herself and another pass for the reflection. Yeah. And then we just added clouds to make it a little bit more surreal and more poetic. Yeah.
It's crazy. So how long did you have in terms of like to shoot it and then do post-production on it?
Well, I think it was one shooting day and remotely, which is crazy. And and I think it took us, I don't know, 2 months.
Yeah, 2 months.
Post-production, something like that. Yeah, like 2 months. Wow. Which was a really, really decent, decent time to, for post, because normally, music videos, the delivery is really, really short, and I think that really allowed us to just to add more stuff, be more creative, and some of the ideas that you see in the music video. I mean, we came up with them basically during the post-production. We added like little things, but just we just discovered in a way that post-production can be also like really, really creative. You have the tools and the resources,
and the time.
So we thought, like, why don't we just push it further, and then like, why don't we add this effect here, there, not to overplace like a lot of things at the same time, but it's like, for instance, we always wanted to play with something when she leans on that corner, Selena, in the living room, and then you see some cracks in the wall.
Yeah.
Those things are, we had the idea of doing something like that, but then we basically during the post-production we decided to change that approach and make more the wings, and so those cracks could become wings, and that could be just more like an extension of the lyrics at some point. So we've been working on different things just to add some layers of complexity and yeah.
Is it where do you get your inspiration from? Because I some directors, especially for me when I'm developing like creatives and ideas, a lot of it comes from art pieces like paintings and stuff, and like I kind of like take this idea for this painting, then make it kind of a visual sort of representation and make it move and whatever. Where do you kind of get your kind of, because your work is so visually pleasing, does it all just come from your brain, or do you do a lot of research beforehand, see like paintings, see artists, or like even like live installations, like some famous like artists? Where do you get a lot of your inspiration from?
Well, I think that first, of course, if it's a music video, no matter if it's a music video or a commercial, we always try to put together some ideas, like our initial thoughts, and brainstorming. Like, I think this should be about this, or this tracks moves me in a way that I think that it's about this theme, like we try to put together on the table and do a brainstorming,
Yeah.
Then after that, we try to find like a concept, and we are always base our work in a concept. Like, no, because if you work in a concept, you can always play around, move around, and always go back if you are going too forward, So I think that having a strong concept helps you a lot to well, to develop your ideas, no?
Yeah, and in terms of the inspiration, I think we try always to just to be aware about other artists, other people, photographers, always like every time we go somewhere, we always spend like hours we spend when we go to the museum, we spend more time at the library more than at the museum itself, because we're always just buying books and just getting inspired by other people. And I think that creates like a library in your head, of course, of pictures of stuff and that you really like. And the thing is, how can you come up with something that hasn't been done before, or at least that feels like it's something that belongs to you in a way, that is not, you're not trying to copy somebody, or you're not, you know what I mean? It's what is really hard these days, because there are so many things going, like it's so easy sometimes for some people to copy somebody else's work and just change a few things and saying like, okay, I came up with this. That is really hard to find something original, or something that like I say, that feels honest and your vision. And I think that's because everybody, well, not everybody, but you can always copy some sort of style from somebody, but then what's the point? Because at the end of the day, it is not, you're ripping somebody else's sensibility or ideas. And so I think that the challenging thing is coming up with something that can inspire somebody, but also at the same time that feels honest, feels that you're creating your own world. And yeah, that's really tough. I don't know if we succeeded doing that, but we always try hard to stay away from the influences and coming up with our signature somehow.
Yes.
Like, this is our DNA, this is what we created, so let's stick to our sensibility more than somebody else's sensibility.
Yes, and the influences are there, no? I mean, it's like you cannot ignore everything now with the internet, with all the apps, with Instagram. Like, you can follow any artist that you like, no? So you are like constantly being bombarded by a lot of different images, pictures. It's just like no?
Yeah.
But I think that is just like making it personal. Just like make every work personal, and think that means like you have to like what you're doing.
Yeah, that's true.
If you receive a track, is like you have to be really keen on shooting that idea. No? With that, I think that you are loyal to yourself and you are making it personal. So
I think there's many directors that said, though, if you don't utterly love what you're working on, why are you doing it? Like, you have, because obviously you go through so many processes getting sign-offs from, if you're working on a TV script or film or commercial, there's so many processes of like coming up with the idea, people tweaking it, then you go through the agency, then you go through the client, or they go through the network or whatever. And so if you don't really love the idea, because the idea takes a long time from start to finish, if you don't really absolutely believe in the idea, it won't ever come to fruition, because there's so many kind of obstacles that you've got to go through.
Absolutely.
Totally.
And I think that we could also be our own inspiration in a way that sometimes the good ideas come because of your biography, because of what your mother told you, or because those old neighbors that you met when you were a child. You just like, you can grab ideas from the past, and that's also like a really cool source of finding some other stuff that could move you and that could make that work personal. No?
Yeah. I want to know, I was talking to someone the other day about sort of self-doubt. And I think at the moment when we're in a lockdown moment where we're not as working as much, so we've got more time to think. Has there been a point when you were maybe starting in your career that you kind of have self-doubt, that going, I want to achieve this, but I don't know how to achieve it just yet, but I think we're going to go there, we're going to risk it, and then we'll see how it kind of works. Has there ever been moments like that in your career that you've gone, I don't know if this is a good idea, but we don't know if it's going to come off?
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
all the
time, in our spare time, and maybe the reason that we haven't shot a lot of music videos is because we've been developing different scripts for future films, and that's always, it's like an adventure, and that's a risk, because you have to stop doing anything and you have to just Well,
Yeah, it's like a
right,
leap of
and
faith, right?
yeah,
Because every day you see yourself in front of the computer or the typewriter or whatever you use, but it's like, is there anybody, it's just, I mean, sometimes you feel like nobody's gonna really like the shit I'm writing here. And so you really need to trust, in the story, your ideas, your passion about the project, because sometimes nobody's paying you. You're just on your own writing. And, that's the thing, that it's a tough process. I think writing a script or a novel, I think, is one of the most difficult things that somebody can do. I mean, it's at least in our case, for some people, I'm always a bit envious when I see somebody that says, "Oh, I really love writing, and I can write like 5, 10 pages a day." I mean, to me, that's 10 pages a day is impossible. It's crazy. I don't understand how
Isn't it?
somebody do that.
Stephen King does that. He spends every single day he writes 2,000 to 3,000 words a day. But then you got Quentin Tarantino, who says to opposite. He goes, "I write when I feel inspired or when I need to write." And I think everyone's got a different process. But I think, because I'm assuming you guys are working on writing TV scripts or film scripts or whatever, and it's interesting talking about like writing a script, because I think writing a script for like a commercial music video is totally different to writing your own script, because there's no sort of support or backup from a music artist or a brand. It's literally just in your entire imagination, and people are believing 100% just in that, and you're presenting that into networks, into managements and stuff. It's kind of a scary process to be in, because it's a totally different ball game to pitching a script to a commercial, pitching a script to a music artist, because you've got them to back you up when it's out.
No, totally. I mean, it's really different, and also, it's like when you pitch you're pitching a project, like an advertising job. You're attached to your ideas, but in the end, it's a commercial, right? I mean, you're just selling something with that film, and of course you want to come up with something that feels personal, and you want to make a great job, but it's not as deep as talking about the character you've been thinking about for a year or for years, or a story that you've been thinking about for some sort of period of time. So I think it becomes way more personal, and especially you know from producers when you send the script, and you always feel like, okay, well, we hope they like it as much as we do. But when you receive notes, of course, in the very beginning, it was tough for us, because it is so personal that you sometimes you feel that notes are kind of an attack to your work.
For sure, yeah.
And sometimes they are, but because maybe somebody doesn't like what you have written there, or there's a character that they don't like or whatever. But sometimes they are really, really useful, and I think you have to see the bright side of the notes, and you have really to learn how to use those notes in a creative way, just to make you become better. That doesn't mean that notes are always right, but it's just within the years, I think we've been trying to just not taking that personal. And in the end, it's everybody wants to do a good film or a good commercial. So the same thing with agencies. I think sometimes you might not be on the same boat with some agency about something, but in the end, it's just everybody wants to do a good film.
Sure.
Sometimes so that
I think your experience there working in the advertising industry, which is constantly, there's so many rounds of like edits and notes and stuff, that you obviously are used to sort of that sort of process. So I think slightly removing your personal ego from that sort of situation, especially, would help you in kind of script writing as well, when a producer would come along or a network would kind of tweak things, even though they're just notes, and guys, how to take on notes. Because I think that's a massive job as a scriptwriter and as a director, is going, what notes are really beneficial and what notes aren't, and what notes are just someone just saying something because they feel the need to say something. And I think that's just a big experience that a lot of people need to kind of get. And it's a practice, it's a skill, isn't it, knowing how to take on notes.
No, and it's quite embarrassing when you read, I don't know, the first draft you sent, and you feel like, what the fuck? I mean, this is horrible. How can we thought, that was great? And then after some sort of time, maybe, I don't know how many versions, but maybe, because, you know, of course, we became writers by accident, I guess. I mean, we always felt that Tanya and I, we are directors that needed to be writers in order to
Tell our stories.
tell our stories.
Mm-hmm.
But then at some point, once you are, you know, mastering the writing and you are just very into writing, yeah, one day you can call yourself a writer, because if you have written like a few scripts, I mean, I mean, good or bad, but you're a writer. You know what I mean?
I mean, even if you've written one script or just a sentence, you're a writer. That's how I see it. Like, even if you've directed, right? I think this is what I say to like early people who are coming into choreography and directing and creative stuff. Even if you shot something on your iPhone and you directed it, you are a director. Like, you don't need to do a big commercial or music video to become a director. And I think that's as a writer. And I think this is what gives people confidence to do things, rather than thinking that writer title, that director title is so much on a pedestal that
you think that's something that
I mean,
no,
a diploma, no?
like do you feel like you are a writer when do you feel like you are a director? Like, am I a director when I'm working for Rihanna and I'm doing music? Like, do you mean like, or Coldplay or whatever? Like, am I a director then? Well, no, just direct something and you're a director.
Right. I guess, you know, well, somehow the thing I'm saying just this is because at least in our case, we always feel way more comfortable talking about images or talking about, you know, the you know, for us directing. I mean, I wouldn't say is easy, but it feels natural with us. I mean, we it doesn't feel like a struggle. It feels always a challenge, but it's always like a really nice adventure, and we, you know, we're kind of fearless about facing any kind of situation in terms of directing. When it comes to writing, it's a different story, because again, I mean, our pencil when we are directing is the camera, right? And that's the pencil that we really love to use, and the one that we feel confident with. When it's about writing a story, developing characters, that's a really complex thing as well. And I don't know, that's why I said, you know, that I think we became writers by accident, because we always felt that, I mean, in the ideal world, if we could just talk about what we want to tell, and finding maybe like an amazing writer, we would probably be happier just more directing than writing and directing. And personally, I don't really enjoy a lot writing every day. I do it because I really want to tell a story, and I know, you know, probably the best way is at least giving it a shot by myself first, and see what happens. It's like I'm challenging myself to just do something else. I don't know what you think.
No, well, at least, well, the scripts that we have written together, of course, one starts writing and then the other ones read and rewrites or changes, or this is at least as a duo, it's, we don't feel that lonely. Of course, what is really hard is to start from the scratch, you know. I think that when you are in front of the empty page, it's just like you have to have the balls just to start writing, right? But once you start, it's just like, okay, I don't know, it's just like to break that frontier or that fear of what I'm writing is going to be important, you know? Well, if it's important to you, it is, no?
Yeah, it goes back to what we were saying beforehand about like believing totally in your idea, because it takes so long, especially compared to commercials, that it's like a couple of weeks, couple of months or whatever. But obviously with scripts, if you're doing like TV film, that's years, right? That's not the same thing as doing a music video, do a commercial. So even like, I still think the same idea of like, you have to love your idea, because you go through so many rounds of the commercial, but also with scripts. Like, I was reading the writer Vince, I can't remember what his last name is, but he wrote Breaking Bad. And I wanted to know, I'm always fascinated with process and journey. I'm never really interested in where they are now. I'm like, how did you get there? And I think this is what's great about kind of this podcast, is I get to speak to these people and go, where did you come from and where did you go? And he basically talked about like how Breaking Bad came about to get a green light to get bought. And it took him a year and a half, 2 years, because everyone said no. Fox, like Netflix, AMC said no. And then a year later, I think AMC was like, we like it, but there's something else on the roster, on our clientele that's similar to Breaking Bad, even though he was like, it isn't. It's really different. But if you believe that, okay, fine. And then I think VX or VF picked it up, bought it, I think a couple months later. Then it got to like kind of sort of a production thing, got halted for some random reason. And then I think no, it got to a pilot. And then I think, is it AMC? AMC then picked it up, bought it off VF or VX. And then they did that. And then obviously it grew to a thing that Netflix bought it off and whatever. But it took them 2 years. And originally Netflix and all the kind of networks was a bit like, we don't get it. We don't understand a man with cancer. He's a drug dealer. I don't really get it. But like, it was apparently it's been written as one of the greatest television series ever. And it's just like, I always think about those sort of stories that you just never know, because it's just people's opinion, isn't it? People's comments, people's opinion, that they believe that might not be the right story. But actually to you, it's like, it's a really good story. And people will.
But I agree with what you say, that, you know, it's really important to also to tell that kind of backstage story about how they succeeded and how they just made it work. Because, you know, one of the toughest things about also writing is once you have the script, you know, like the first draft or whatever, you feel like, okay, this is at least good enough to send it over to somebody. That you know, then becomes the second part, which is well, financing the movie or the just getting some money to start with or whatever. And that's probably the, you know, I mean, writing is super tough, but getting the money for actually producing that script is even more difficult. So and the amount of, you know, situations where you see yourself pitching, you know, in front of producers, agencies, whatever, and then the amount of times that, at least in our case, we felt like we were really close to get the finance of the film, and then something happens and boom, goes down. I mean, you really need to be bulletproof to, you know, just to keep going, keep fighting, and that's what you said, that if you really love the story, that's kind of the, you know, the engine that you have inside to just to go like, okay, fuck it. I mean, they rejected, but we're gonna get this done one day, and we're gonna keep pushing, keep, you know, doing whatever it takes to make the project, you know, come to life. So, and it's crazy because you talk about Breaking Bad, which is one of the best TV series ever, and isn't it crazy that somebody was, you know, passing on Breaking Bad?
Jeremy,
I mean,
I find it funny. I mean, you can see it by any kind of series. But I want to know, as we kind of come to a close of the episode, we do this thing called a give back. And I'd love to know, I mean, we talk about loads of different things of inspiration and the way that you write and in your work, but I'd love to know what's inspired you. It could be like a film, could be like a painting, anything which you would give back to an audience.
Yes, well, I should say now, because of we cannot ignore the COVID and the situation that we are living right now, which is quite stressful to read. For example, in our case, that we have a toddler, you know, it's just like finding your space to find imagination and inspiration is super tough. Mm-hmm. But I should say that as an advice, is just like, try to do whatever you wanted to be and you didn't dare to do it, or take a class that you were not sure about it, but suddenly you have an opportunity, which is now the lockdown, right? That you can do stuff and go beyond, even though you have to stay at home, no? So in my case, for example, what I recommend is that, I don't know, do online classes. I did one in the Lee Strasberg Institute, because I really wanted to be an actress back in my old days, you know, and right now I'm a mother, I'm a director, I'm super busy. And I say like, hey, there's an online class. So amazing. Just please give me 2 hours a day and I will make this work. Yeah. So I did it, and I started reading books, and I started just to enrich myself because I love actors. And I think that's something which has been amazing for me in the quarantine, no? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Prepare myself a little bit more, because of course you cannot do exercise because there are like a lot of restrictions. No, it's really hard to read a very tough book. So I just said like what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be. Well, I'm gonna prepare myself in terms of directing actors, performance, acting. So that's what I did.
But no, I don't think you did it only because, you know, I think you did more like a personal thing, like you were saying, like you wanted to experience the process more than more like, oh, I'm gonna learn this how to understand how to direct somebody.
Yes,
which always helps, of course. But what I'm saying is,
but that's the good thing about the lockdown, because probably like if we were in the normal days, I shouldn't have the time or the thoughts to do that, you know.
100%.
Sure.
So I think that's quite positive, and this could be translated into dance, or into cooking lessons, into any kind of lessons. I think the online lessons are amazing, and it's like the perfect excuse to say what I wanted to be, what I want to do, boom, do it.
Yeah,
no?
that's true.
Yeah, well, I want to say thank you so much, guys, for coming on 360 Yourself. It's been absolutely a pleasure to talk to you and just to pick your brains and stuff. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Jamie. It was a pleasure. Really fun.